convincing story that maps onto reality, and that's why the central narrative is falling apart.
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
We must see the central narrative for the fiction that it is. We are Americans.
While elections are sometimes messy, this was a secure election.
The founders began the fight for human liberty and self-governance, and it's up to us to finish the job.
I tell you what, we are in a truth emergency right now.
This is the end game.
All the people that have gone out there against the mainstream media and said, you're going to call us racist, you're going to call us potential Timothy McVeighs, fuck you. War.
Immensely seductive. Quite sure he's right. An obsessionally neurotic. Pretty dangerous, in fact.
Do you mean you doubt your powers to convince him?
Worse than that. What I'm afraid of is his power to convince me.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
All right, I'll say it.
Sweetheart, be reasonable.
All right, everybody. It is Wednesday, December 4th, 2024, the 1414th day of dystopia. I'm your moderator, Chris Paul. Let's be reasonable. Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday subscriber stream. Got a bunch of fun things today. Hopefully we'll have some fun. Tomorrow and Thursday, there will be no show. So I just want to let you know that right off the bat so that you are not expecting something and then I fail to deliver, as it were. Although I might try to, I'm going to see if I can throw up some little surprises. I may have mentioned them on Monday. And hey, you guys are paid subscribers. I might as well tell them to you. I interviewed Kash Patel a couple of times on the podcast back in early 2022, if memory serves. And so I found those episodes, I don't know, a couple of months ago, intending to put them up and then never did. Maybe tomorrow and Friday will be the days to do that. I don't think that they're available on the Substack for whatever reason. They didn't transfer. I'm not sure. But those might be fun. I can't remember the full conversation. I do remember the most interesting point to me at the time was I asked Kash specifically about the good twin, evil twin dynamic. I had just kind of thought of that a few days before interviewing him. I think maybe I was thinking about what to ask him. And so I asked him about, I think, the Philippines and maybe Peru and certainly Myanmar. And he just kind of skipped right off that question. It was clear that he wasn't going to engage any of those topics. And I can, I guess, kind of tell why. I mean, especially at that point, John had already begun writing Devolution, I think, in maybe August of 2021. And that circle was beginning to form. So, you know, Kash has obviously since created considerable distance between himself and Patel Patriot. He hasn't been back on my show. He has spent a lot of time going on X22 over the past couple of years. So all that'll be very interesting to see. I mean, Kash's creation of distance between himself and Patel Patriot didn't mean anything to me in my commitment to that I don't know if you want to call it a belief system, but that framing of how to view this pause period, these last 4 years, that didn't throw me off at all, even though there was a considerable harassment campaign by people who were in, the so-called truth movement to come after John, to come after Badlands eventually. All good, whatever. Also, though, in regards to Kash Patel, I was looking earlier, I was asking Perplexity what was up with the 60 jury trials that Kash had prosecuted, as mentioned by Donald Trump in his Truth Social post announcing Kash's future nomination. Perplexity had no record of that, which I thought was strange. They were like, there's no proof anywhere that Kash Patel prosecuted 60 cases, particularly jury trials, and then it immediately kind of misdirected or redirected toward statements that would doubt Kash's professionalism and expertise in those roles. Statements from unnamed colleagues suggesting that Kash was not very good at his job. And so then I engaged Perplexity in a conversation about why they would try to discredit Kash Patel in a question I asked about Donald Trump and the 60 cases that he had tried. I then asked Perplexity whether it was possible that Kash Patel had prosecuted cases in military tribunals or in some other version of a secret court. And it said that it was possible, but there would be no reason to speculate that because it would not be an evidence-based claim. And that's all fine and good. It was confusing to me that they wanted to discredit Kash in an answer that had nothing to do with what they brought up. I am not a big fan of when the AIs or search engines will bring up something ancillary to not only answer the question in the negative, but to then actually try to make a negative case against the, anti-regime figure, as it were. They really do have an incredible way of doing that. I just asked about the 60 cases Trump said he tried. I didn't need someone's opinion that Kash isn't good at his job. I mean, that's so silly. But, it's what we've kind of come to expect at this point. So let's, I want to play a couple of clips before I get into some other things that I want to talk about today that are kind of, apropos of nothing. One of them is Mike Benz. Yesterday, his episode, or the episode of his appearance on Joe Rogan, came out, and he had this to say, which I thought was kind of interesting. And I have not listened to the whole interview yet, so I can't review it or make any conclusive statements about anyone's reactions or whatever. I'll probably listen to that over the course of the next couple of days. And Joe Rogan, maybe an op in one way or another, might just be a dumb guy who talks to CIA assets. Mike Benz is probably an op in one way or another. Mike Benz, I think, is probably a good op. I think that's hard to make a case against, although, who knows? He certainly brought a lot of information to light that needed to get to the mainstream and wasn't getting to the mainstream through other channels. He certainly educated me about a bunch of these issues. He's certainly done the work. I'm a big fan of Mike Benz. So with that, here's the clip.
Against our own people. And it's being waged as part of a political proxy war to stop populists like Trump from being able to get elected in the first place. And if he gets elected, to be able to throttle his administration and his allies around the world so that he can't implement his agenda.
Jesus. How do you sleep? Like knowing all this, like what?
It was really, really hard the first 3 or 4 years because there was like, I was in this before when the whole thing was totally depressing and there were no wins at all. I was like, and it was bad. My health deteriorated. I didn't look good. I didn't feel good. I tell everyone you have to go through your 5 stages of grief on this. You're going to have your your denial, and then your anger, and then your depression, and then your bargaining, and then your acceptance, and you'll go through many iterations of those 5 stages of grief. But you get to a certain point, I think, where you accept that this is our inheritance, and this is, in a way, as evil as so many components of it are, the larger picture is kind of a fascinating archaeological dive into the ancient dinosaur bones of the world that we live in.
All right, so I can agree with him about all of that, and I hope that these things are and do serve as some sort of red pill to the Joe Rogan audience. No matter the criticisms that I've had for these media figures over the last couple of years, it's because they're clearly lying to millions of people. Now, if they're doing that for a good reason, as I've said many times, I guess we can cross that bridge when we come to it. It would be good to find that out for sure before we just go defending these people all the time as they lie to millions of people. But there are people in Joe Rogan's audience who would have said over the course of these last few years that what Mike Benz said at the beginning of that clip was totally crazy. That was a conspiracy theory. There's some operation being run against the populace of this country by their own government. That was a conspiracy theory. People like me were called crazy for talking about that. And I'm sure that all of you were as well. And certainly people have been in that game for a lot longer than I have. And I've probably called those people crazy at some point in my life prior to 2020. But man, oh man, I don't know why anyone would call conspiracy theories crazy or call people crazy on the basis of conspiracy theories, quote unquote, at this point. That seems absolutely crazy to me. People are like, they're unwilling to talk about, I don't know, aliens is kind of a silly one. A lot of people talk about that. They're unwilling to talk about, many are still unwilling to talk about our stolen elections, the fact that they're actually just fake elections. Many people are unwilling to talk about flat earth. Whether or not the earth is flat, I have no idea. But the idea that we're just going to trust the science on it, that the science has told us the truth about that one, give me a break. Space, all that stuff. Maybe there's an ice wall surrounding us inside some weird dome. How the hell would we know? Okay. We don't know the state of our existence, and we don't need to pretend that we do know because the science told us. People are unwilling to deal with the idea that viruses might not exist and that we might just be getting poisoned on a massive scale, being told that it's something else. There are a lot of those so-called conspiracy theories that the gatekeepers of information are still trying to prevent discussion, surrounding those issues. Give me a break. At this point, what is anybody doing pretending to be too serious for these conversations? The people who claim to be too serious for these conversations, that they claim they've already looked and, oh, there's nothing there, dumbs, whatever it is, right? No, those people are not serious. Those are the unserious people. Those people are equidistant from actually awakening and being the people who are wearing 2 masks in their car. Okay. Understanding that wearing 2 masks in their car is dumb because masks don't work. That position is still dumb relative to understanding what is actually poisoning us out there, So halfway is not all the way there. And I'm not claiming to be all the way there, but I'm open-minded about the rest of it, which is the only way you ever get closer. Okay. If you're not open-minded about a whole bunch of different subjects that may be true because you don't know, that's not awake by any stretch of the imagination. Speaking of viruses, let's take a look at this absolute lunatic, Peter Hotez, who, by the way, was another member of the Joe Rogan Experience information op. This little scumbag was on Joe Rogan. And yes, Joe Rogan was kind of playing devil's advocate on all these points, or actually trying to refute him on some of them, but he still has all these guys on his show. And the bulk of his guests are these guys. There are many occasions where a Joe Rogan guest will have numerous clips shared and numerous clips go viral, but it's not all the guests. There are plenty of guests who just, back up the normie take on everything. And so for every one of these mind-blowing red pill artists on the Joe Rogan Experience, there's 10 of these guys.
The reason why we need to care about this stuff. Nicole is.
There's 3 of these guys or 4 of these guys, let's say. I know that people are, oh, come on, that's not fair.
So we have some big picture stuff coming down the pike starting on January 21st. Mr. Bloomberg mentioned H5N1. That I'm really worried about. It's all over wild birds on the western part of the United States and going up in the north. It's getting into the poultry. We're seeing sporadic human cases, no human-to-human transmission yet, but that could happen. It's in the cattle, it's in the milk, and that's just the beginning. We have another major coronavirus likely brewing in Asia. We've had SARS in 2002, SARS-2, COVID-19 in 2019. And we know these viruses are jumping from bats to people thousands of times a year. But there's still more. We know that we have a big problem with mosquito-transmitted viruses all along the Gulf Coast, where I am here in Texas. So we're expecting dengue and possibly Zika virus coming back, or a Puche virus, maybe even yellow fever. And there's more. Then we have all this sharp rise in vaccine preventable diseases going up because of, in part, the anti-vaccine activism that's so prominent right now. We have a 5-fold rise in pertussis cases, whooping cough over the last year, 15 measles outbreaks this year. We've got polio that's been in the wastewater in New York State. All that's going to come crashing down on January 21st on the Trump administration. We need a really, really good team to be able to handle this.
So how about that? Very deadly pandemic after very deadly pandemic. They're just, he's just setting 10 possibilities out on the table. They're going to just pick 1 or 2 or 3. Who knew? We were trying to defend ourselves from the other one, and we didn't defend ourselves from this one. And you got to love the polio in the wastewater thing. According to reports from back during the very deadly pandemic, there was COVID in the wastewater in like other countries from 2012, COVID-19. All of this obviously is bullshit. The understanding that viruses do not jump from bats to humans 1,000 times a year in China, and that viruses aren't a naturally occurring thing that actually that's capable of spreading disease and doing this and transmitting from human to human. That would erase the fear about all of this. And immediately upon the announcement of one of these new very deadly pandemics, everyone would know, oh, wait, there's something else going on. Talking about polio, are we going to get a polio resurgence? We're going to be told there's a polio resurgence. And the reason I believe that is because of that narrative seeding and because of the fact that the anti-vaccine argument, the most baseline anti-vaccine argument, was, well, polio was cured by a vaccine. No, it wasn't. And we're going to be told that the anti-vax people are the reason that polio is coming back. That would be so ridiculous. And to me, that would be funny. A lot of people are like, that's crazy. That's going to be awful. That's going to be terrible. Everyone's going to think we're killers. And no, just laugh in their faces. That it's accepting that the problem is real in the first place and then reacting to the problem that commits you to dealing with the problem on their terms. Laugh in their faces from the beginning. Be like, no, that's not a real problem. If people are getting sick, if people are getting paralyzed, I think that's what polio does or something. It's from something else. And then figure out what that other thing is. And then when people begin having their theories, explore those theories and push that, rather than listening to these morons tell you that polio has returned because of the anti-vaxxers. Speaking of the deranged comedy of all of it, let's go to the fake president, Joe Biden. He is currently in Angola. He's winding down his fake presidency in Africa right now, promising them $1 billion and then saying this.
With you earlier when I said we Bidens are like poor relatives. We show up when we're invited, we stay longer than we should, eat all your food, and don't know when to go home.
We Bidens are like poor relatives. We show up uninvited, stay longer than we should, eat all your food, and then refuse to go home. Very presidential. I mean, that's actually funny. It actually is funny. And I don't know if the Bidens are like that. I guess you can take it from the last 4 years that they are. I found this amusing. You know, there's the, I think it's a Q post or something, but talking about how when all of this is said and done, maybe it's just a meme, when all this is said and done, Obama is going to claim Kenyan citizenship. And so I made this little meme yesterday. The hotline bling, the Drake hotline bling meme, saying no to Obama flees to Kenya and saying yes to Biden flees to Angola. The implication here being that Biden is now in Angola and saying that because he's going to just stay there to avoid accountability in the United States. And that would be amazing. Let's continue our march forward. Okay, so those are the fun. Oh no, I want to do one more video. This is just an influencer online. Seems Korean, maybe is Korean. I don't know. Follow up on the South Korean issue yesterday. Let's take a look at this first, and then we'll get into an article.
If y'all are confused as to why I called South Korea U.S. occupied Korea, so I'll break it down for y'all on this video. First of all, the U.S. military has 73 bases in South Korea, and that includes over 28,000 military personnel. Secondly, the South Korean government has zero jurisdiction over these military bases, including their military personnel. So that means a U.S. soldier can commit a crime in South Korea, but will be tried under U.S. courts and under U.S. law. Lastly, and most importantly, during times of conflict and times of war, it is a U.S. military general that is in charge of all military in South Korea. This includes all of South Korea's military, as well as all the U.S. military personnel stationed in South Korea. This ultimately means that South Korea needs the U.S. empire's permission in order to declare both war and martial law. This occupation is the U.S. empire's two-state solution that has been in place since the Korean War and is ultimately the main reason that the Korean peninsula is still divided today.
Well, how about that? That's pretty incredible. Perplexity says the operational control of South Korean military forces by the U.S. military during wartime is a key aspect of the U.S.-South Korean alliance. Currently, under the terms of the armistice, South Korea maintains operational control over its military forces. However, in the event of war, this control would shift to the United States. So how about that? I mean, what better explanation could you possibly get of what a proxy state is like? We pretend that they are their own independent sovereign country, and instead what they are is a country that is still occupied by the United States for 70 years now. And that is the split between North and South Korea, is that South Korea is a regime proxy state and North Korea is not. We are told that North Korea is a brutal communist dictatorship. How often are we told that South Korea is a regime or even a U.S., because they deny that the regime is even a real thing, is a U.S. proxy state? We're never told that. We're never told that the United States occupies South Korea. We're told that it's an independent democratic state with its own free and fair elections. We're being told that military government ended 40 years ago, and now they have free and direct elections. And that's what it means to be a free state in the world. If you don't have the regime occupying and controlling your country, and you don't have regime approved elections, then you are a brutal communist dictatorship. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. We should all be ashamed of this. Honestly, I believe we should be. I don't know how anybody thinks this is a tolerable point of view, especially considering that the American people are obviously ignorant to all of it on purpose. You know, we're told that we have military bases all around the world and we are just protecting U.S. interests from these dangerous states. It's good that we have our military in all of these places because all of these rogue states are just so hell-bent on violence and war that they're going to, if we weren't there, they would immediately be starting wars all over the globe. And eventually that would threaten us here. And we're told that that justifies our military presence around the world. What we have are proxy states, otherwise known as colonies. And I'm not saying they're even American colonies. I'm saying they're regime colonies. And we should at least entertain the notion that we are still too, or that we maybe stopped being at one point and then that was pulled right back to the regime, to the City of London bankers, and ultimately to the British crown. And, you know, again, whatever's left of that, it's hard to say. Trump suggested that Canada, if they didn't get along with the program, and, you know, Justin Trudeau made a very cucked appearance at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend, but that if Canada didn't get on board with the program, then they would be essentially annexed and made the 51st state. And maybe Canada would be happy about that. Perhaps in some sense, I think that that would be a better situation for them than being a proxy state of the global regime. I mean, if this is one of those kind of regions of responsibility things that we seem to be seeing emerge with the emergence of the multipolar world order, maybe that would be a good thing. And maybe it's the United States being the leader of this region of responsibility, with Canada and Mexico as kind of the junior partners. And who knows how far that extends into Central America. Brazil would take on that role in South America, perhaps South Africa, in Africa, China and Russia, certainly, and India, various parts of Asia, Poland and Hungary in Europe, maybe France. Trump's heading to France this weekend to attend the reopening of the Cathedral of Notre Dame. And who knows? He said nice things about Emmanuel Macron lately. There's got to be something going on in Europe, the same way there's clearly something going on with France and Mexico. I mean, with Canada and Mexico. And here is a post from Donald Trump last night saying, "Oh, Canada," standing on top of a mountain with a Canadian flag in it, as though he has conquered the place where Canada put down their flag. And then someone in my chat last night suggested that this looked like the Matterhorn, this other mountain there. Maybe that's true. And that would be, I think, on the border of Switzerland and Italy. So maybe that says something about neutrality. Who knows? I haven't dug deep on the Matterhorn story. If someone in the chat knows a bunch about it, by all means, go ahead and drop it in the chat and I'll see if I can get an eye on it. Shannon in the chat, $10 Rumble rant, says, "Love the live streams, Chris. Hope you had a nice Thanksgiving and enjoying safe travels." Thank you very much, not only for the Rumble rant, but for your kind words. And yes, I did have a lovely Thanksgiving. Let's go to what the Associated Press wants us to know about the South Korean events of yesterday. And by the way, I mean, everybody knows I'm not much of a Q person. I mean, I think it's an incredibly interesting information operation, maybe the most important one in the history of the world since the Bible. But and I don't mean to demean the Bible, obviously, in any way by calling it an information operation. I'm saying in terms of information operations, nothing this significant in the way information has changed the world at large since that time. And this information operation has brought a lot of people heading quickly in that direction, including, I guess, in some downstream way, myself. So I think that that is well aligned regardless. But I wrote a 25,000 word piece about, or series of pieces about the Q operation. So I have nothing bad to say about that at all. Other than I think, maybe people depend on it a little too much. And I think at some point that has to end. We shall see how they react to that. To the progress of time. Like if people are still decoding Q posts in 2029, something would probably be drastically wrong with those people. But hey, man, I'm open to all possibilities. But there were about 9 exact deltas from today And deltas, of course, for anyone who doesn't know, are when Q posts hit on the same day as, a year, 2-year, 3-year anniversary, whatever. So there were deltas, like 9 of them, that hit on Korea directly for December 4th. That's pretty amazing. These are all stories in the first place, so it's not hard for things to line up in a coordinated fashion in an info op like that. The problem is that people think all of these are real events that have just been predicted by Q. These are narrative events. Q posts are also narrative events. If the narrative is then timed for a rollout along a predicted and predictable timeline, then these events don't need to be real at all. And of course, there's a very real sense in which they aren't. And maybe you can make of that description what you will, a very real sense that they aren't. What to know about South Korea's short-lived and chaotic period of martial law? Again, this is the Associated Press this morning. They've already updated their updates. South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol said early Wednesday that he would soon lift the military rule he imposed overnight after the parliament voted to reject his martial law declaration. Okay, so we already knew that. So the parliament has moved to impeach him after he sent heavily armed forces into Seoul's streets with his baffling and sudden declaration of martial law that hearkened to the country's past dictatorships. Now, we talked about parallels yesterday with these geopolitical events. You'll remember the second impeachment hoax of Donald Trump after the very violent insurrection. We were told that Donald Trump did all these awful things in that impeachment, and they used all sorts of info op video from Jaden X and others in that impeachment hoax. They literally changed the content of people's tweets to make it look, to make things look worse for Trump. So I suggested yesterday it wouldn't be very hard to stage a conflict between troops that were sent by Yoon and these members of parliament. We see troops holding rifles up, pointing rifles at supposed members of parliament, and them wrestling with the security forces. All of that can certainly be staged. And the fact that it is now being used as a premise for a pending impeachment of Yoon, something they already wanted to do before, seems extra suspicious. And there is a clear parallel there. Opposition parties submitted the impeachment motion just hours after Parliament unanimously voted to cancel Yoon's declaration, forcing him to lift martial law about 6 hours after it began. It's important to note there that while the vote was unanimous for the 190 out of 300 Parliament members, as it says in this here paragraph, that might be unanimous for the people who were there. It wasn't unanimous for all the members of Parliament. The fact that less than, or what was 60% would be 180 votes, 66% would be 200 votes. So right in the middle of that, 63% of the parliament was there. It was unanimous among them, but not unanimous among the parliament. So 63% of the parliament, calling that a unanimous parliamentary vote, would be a bit misleading. Impeaching Yoon requires the support of 2/3 of the National Assembly and at least 6 of the 9 Constitutional Court justices. So they would need then 10 more votes beyond what they had yesterday. Now, was that just an exposure to get the Uniparty members of Yoon's own party? Hey, maybe. Was it an overt display that 190 members of parliament were willing to oppose Yoon while Yoon was saying he was opposing North Korea? What does that tell us about the seriousness of the threat North Korea poses, even in the minds of these members of parliament? And then we should obviously see that the rest of the world could take it that way as well. And it's been pretty clear that the threat North Korea poses has been overstated the entire time. And I think that was one of the main points that I made in the podcast that I mentioned yesterday, Summer Instagram Bromance, from, I think, June 21st of this year. So it requires 2/3 of the National Assembly and 6 of the 9 Constitutional Court justices. The liberal opposition Democratic Party holds a majority in the 300-seat parliament and has called for Yoon's resignation. So they're trying to get Yoon out of there on this basis, even though they were trying to get him out before. And of course, we are being told by the regime media outlets that the opposition was Yoon's real target, and the opposition, usually in the parlance of these regime outlets, indicates their propped up opposition to a president who is not aligned with the good of their regime, no matter how he came in. You know, Yoon could have been that guy a few years ago, and they now have found out that he's not. Maybe that's the case with Vladimir Putin. Maybe that's the case with some of these other world leaders. It also might be the case that they're replaced with someone who looks exactly like them. During the tense hours under martial law. Oh, by the way, I guess this is worth noting. The impeachment motion could be held as early as Friday. So I guess we shall see. During the tense hours under martial law, heavily armed forces surrounded the parliament, backed by army helicopters and armored vehicles. Lawmakers climbed walls to get into the building and held off troops by activating fire extinguishers. Oh, so bold. And by the way, let's look at this picture right here. I want everybody to notice what this picture is. Okay. So obviously this is taken by a professional cameraman positioned right behind these troops, quote unquote troops. No insignia on any of these troops that I can see anywhere. If someone wants to tell me I'm wrong, I'm totally open to being wrong, but I do not see any insignia on any of these troops. Man, I guess I guess that's a battery pack on the back of this helmet. So no insignia on any of these troops. And then we see the fire extinguishers spraying here, as our Associated Press betters tell us these defenders of democracy were doing, right? So we see the smoke being sprayed. Those don't look like fire extinguishers, but maybe they are. We can't say they're not. I guess it's possible Korean fire extinguishers look different than ours. This right here is a video camera right behind these members of parliament, I guess. That is a news camera. That is a professional video camera right there, stationed with these defenders of democracy against these troops with no insignia on their body. So you tell me what we're dealing with, okay? I mean, people get sick of me calling things fake, but what are we supposed to believe that is? Go look at it for yourself. I'm going to make sure I back up this page, by the way. The headline again, what to know about South Korea's short-lived and chaotic period of martial law. So go see it for yourself. The lawmakers who managed to re-enter the building rejected Yoon's martial law declaration, including 18 lawmakers from Yoon's party. Okay, so we were already told that Yoon has been a lame duck figure since the last elections, which made the Democrat opposition the majority party in the assembly. And then they have 18 from Yoon's party. So this sounds, again, very much like the Uniparty arrangement we have here in the United States. We should assume they have a Uniparty there because the United States controls that country, which means the regime controls that country ultimately. So why would they put a different election system in place than they have in their other proxies? It sounds like they've put the same government in place, a better version of it, by the way, for them from their perspective than what they have in the United States. We hear all the time about how other countries' constitutions are based on ours. What do you think the purpose of that is? They want to get the best possible control version of our constitution that should tell people the regime believes our constitutional system gives them significant control. And of course, our constitution has been amended over and over and over again to increase their level of control. And we are always told, of course, that it's just to increase the civil rights of these minority populations or whatever. It's obviously not, okay? It's obvious that the regime is very comfortable with this system and their level of control in this system, and they give an even more controlled, better version of this system to other countries. It is incredible. Yoon blamed an anti-state plot, but details are vague. So Yoon's claim about, let's just go through this. Yoon ordered martial law without warning in a speech late Tuesday where he vowed to eliminate anti-state forces he said were plotting rebellion and accused the main opposition parties of supporting the country's rival, North Korea. So North Korea is being used by Yoon as the scapegoat, this very scary dominating force that could threaten South Korea itself. So he is using North Korea the way the global regime uses North Korea. And the regime-aligned political elements in his country are fighting against that, which turns the regime on itself, something I personally love to see in all cases, which is, the sort of place we can get to through this sort of analysis rather than deciding North Korea is a communist country and South Korea is a democracy and martial law is bad against the defenders of democracy. All these moron takes online. Gosh, man, I don't know. I guess they're still going to be out there for a while. Why? Because people are unwilling to tell the truth to their audiences, or they're unable to discern the truth because they believe everything the television says. And maybe at some point, people on our side should stop defending those media figures. And we'll talk about that again in just a couple of minutes. Yoon gave no direct evidence when he raised the specter of North Korea as a destabilizing force. He needs evidence against North Korea? We've never had evidence against North Korea, and still we're scared of them shooting nukes at California. That doesn't make any sense. Yoon has long maintained that a hard line against the North is the only way to stop Pyongyang from following through on its nuclear threats against Seoul. That is comical. That's hilarious. This dude, by the way, people started changing their opinions about him yesterday when they saw pictures of him with the comedic actor Volodymyr Zelensky. How about that? Let me see if I can find it. Was from DD Geopolitics. I remember this on Telegram. And, there's a lot of these kind of based in red-pilled foreign policy geopolitical issue sites that give us the very anti-Ukraine based in red-pilled takes, and all good, It's important that we get the anti-Ukraine takes. I'm not mad at it, but it doesn't mean that all of this analysis is just immediately valuable or that this is a trusted source of geopolitical information. So they posted yesterday, or maybe this is from today, a proposal for the impeachment of the president of the Republic of Korea was officially submitted to the country's parliament. This was reported by Reuters. Earlier, the South Korean president declared martial law. Okay, but they have a picture of him again, shaking hands with Zelensky. But I want to find the post from yesterday where they went a little more deeply into it. So we're having Yoon in South Korea associated narratively with Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine, the comedic actor, who seems to be, certainly at this point, well under control. If you are threatened by Zelensky asking for more money, further embarrassing the regime in the United States, I think you're probably getting something wrong. DD Geopolitics also said the president crossed out president and wrote dictator of South Korea, announced he is accepting the parliament's decision to lift martial law. So is he a dictator if he accepts the parliament's decision for him to lift martial law? It sounds like DD Geopolitics is just running a base and red-pilled info op that isn't particularly bright. And hey, man, all good. All good. I guess there's a place for all of it, right? So if he is being compared directly to Volodymyr Zelensky, then we should see him in the same way. He is attracting this nuclear threat from North Korea the same way that Zelensky is attracting this nuclear threat from Russia. And eventually we see that the nuclear threat is totally toothless. No matter how much the United States tries to build up this nuclear threat, there really isn't one because nukes are fake, but also because nukes aren't going to be used in this situation because Joe Biden's not a real president and there's no real control by the regime in any of these states. And so the proxy is now being used against the regime, same as it was in Ukraine, same as it was, I guess, in Hong Kong and some of these other places, same as it will be ultimately in Taiwan. We're going to see what happens with the Israel and Pakistan situation. We can see this in all of the proxy states as the separation occurs, that those proxy states are then being used against the regime to show the regime's case as a lie through and through, and that it always was a lie, which makes people turn against the regime even harder. So look at how Yoon is being used in a narrative sense, rather than trying to figure out all of the politics, what's true and false on any little step of the narrative throughout the history of the country, and then be like, oh, well, I think Yoon might be a neocon. He supported sending extra money to Ukraine. What? Like, that's nonsense at this point. You can see what Ukraine is. What does it mean that a proxy president in South Korea sent money to Ukraine? That means he's a neocon, even though he's doing this thing that's destroying the regime, narratively speaking, which is the only way that matters because the rest of it's already been taken care of. You know, I mean, we just got to move beyond the way we are conditioned to think about these issues. We can understand what is happening at a bigger level. We can understand how patterns replay because narratives replay. The patterns have to replay to make the narratives work. The narrative playbook isn't going to change. So the patterns can't change. And then whatever real organic elements end up layering themselves on top of the psyop, it's not that there's a reality underneath the psyop. Whatever reality there is above the psyop in a level of fakery and non-reality, at least. People might be coming out to support something. They don't know what they're supporting. They're in fact supporting the opposite of what they think they're supporting. So that means they're clearly not supporting the psyop, right? Whatever it is they're supporting, it's not the psyop. All right, so they go through what is martial law. Lawmakers on both sides opposed. We talked about that. Yoon is struggling politically. And so let's just go through this so we can get it on the record. There were quick claims, that the emergency declaration was linked to Yoon's political struggles. There you go. He has had little success in getting his policies adopted by a parliament that has been controlled by the opposition since he took over in 2022. Well, what do we expect? Conservatives who have said the opposition moves are political revenge for investigations into Lee, who is seen as the favorite for the next presidential election in 2027. No wonder they want to get rid of him. That's 3 years away, 2 years away, 2 and some odd years away, and things are falling apart already for them. Just this month, Yoon denied wrongdoing in an influence peddling scandal involving him and his wife, blah, blah. The claims have battered his approval ratings and fueled attacks by his rivals. Who cares? The scandal centers on claims that Yoon and First Lady Kim Kyon-hee exerted inappropriate influence on the conservative ruling People Power Party to pick a certain candidate for a parliamentary by-election in 2022 at the request of Myung Tae-kyun, an election broker and founder of a polling agency who conducted free opinion surveys for Yoon before he became president. Yoon has said he has done nothing inappropriate. Gosh, what an awful scandal. How could they let this guy be president for even another day? All of this is ridiculous. You should now see, I believe, the martial law op, whichever it was, whichever side started that op. And Yoon may well have played into their side op. Like when Trump calls protesters to DC, he is layering on his own version on top of that psyop. What would J6 have looked like if there weren't a million Trump supporters there behaving totally peacefully? Would have probably looked a lot different. They were rerunning the Maidan Square massacre of 2014 in Ukraine, which was itself a rerun of the Reichstag fire. And then we saw our J6 rerun down in Brazil. It's just an op, and Trump layered on top of that op. Yoon might have layered on top of this op. Trump often false starts their narratives by saying the thing that they are going to say before they say it. And when Trump says it, there will be hours and hours where people are like, that's bullshit. Screw you, Trump. And then the media says it. And rather than Trump caring about whether or not he looks right, he just backs out completely and lets everyone argue the side they've already argued, but now against the media. And then Trump does the opposite and is just like, yeah, I was just responding to the American people. It's brilliant. People want it to be honest the whole time. And if it could be honest the whole time, maybe we would be better. And because it's not honest the whole time, we should at least maintain some level of skepticism about the things Donald Trump says and Donald Trump's ultimate purpose. Even if that is this much skepticism, a very, very tiny amount, it's still worth holding, even over Donald Trump, because we don't know the man. All right. And there is a lot of deception involved, and there could be just one more level than we think. This is, I think, that same type of deception. And this is a good way to judge some of the media figures that are characterizing this issue in certain ways. Look at what they're saying. Does their analysis make any sense? Or are they just like, North Korea are a bunch of commies? Because that stuff's not getting us anywhere, man. It really isn't. And, you know, it's hard to say this as a person who works kind of in that space, especially with a much smaller platform than these people, because the claim is that I want a cut of their money. I want their size of platform. I'm jealous of the number of followers. And no matter how many times I can say, no, that's not the case, it doesn't matter. You know, people are going to say what they're going to say. We've been censored the whole time. They have not. That should be one real clue. I'm telling you, don't believe me. I'm trying to figure this out just like you are. Here's what I think from a number of different perspectives. See if this makes sense to you. And regardless, we've considered a number of perspectives. Therefore, we're not going to be tricked by any of them. We've thought our way through a bunch of them. And we're not going to be triggered emotionally in the same way, because the world actually makes sense when you look at it makes more sense, I should say, when you look at it from a number of different directions, rather than having some based and red-pilled influencer repeat what they just saw on Twitter in their own unique based and red-pilled way, so that there's no perspective on any of these situations, and everything the news says is constantly a surprise. And they love that it's constantly a surprise, because that is what holds everyone else back on an informational timeline and allows them to keep seeming like they are ahead of the curve or somehow at the cutting edge, when they are literally years behind everything all the time. And, you know, so that's my rant about media and competition. And, you know, whatever. Competition is competition. It's going to be there. I'm all good with that situation. The fact that they have an uneven playing field to work on is annoying, but, you know, it is what it is. You can't sit here crying about it. All right, so let's continue moving forward to another one of the problems that exactly those people have caused and continue to perpetuate. This is from this morning, CNN Politics. Democrats flip in California, concludes final unresolved U.S. House race. How about that? We are one day before the end of California's counting deadline. They have 30 days after the election to count votes. So here we are. Republican John Duarte has conceded to his Democrat challenger, Adam Gray, in California's 13th congressional district. Duarte campaign spokesman Dwayne DiChiara confirmed to CNN. The 5 counties in the district certified their results Tuesday, leaving Gray with a 187 vote lead. The contest was the last unresolved House race in the country, and with Gray's victory, Republicans won 220 seats to Democrats' 215. Overall, Democrats gained 1 seat from their pre-election total. So 30 days of counting, 187 vote win for the Democrat challenger. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? What happened to our landslide? The Republican majority is likely to get even tighter in the early part of next year. Former Rep. Matt Gaetz resigned from the House last month, won't take his new seat in Congress. Reps Elise Stefanik and Mike Waltz of Florida are expected to leave the chamber to take positions in the Trump administration. If all 3 seats are vacant at once, a 217-215 majority would mean that Republicans couldn't afford to lose a single member on a party line vote. How about that? Now, elections are fake. And the results, the reporting of these results of these elections, I believe to be fully controlled. And I believe we have pretty sound evidence of that of that at this point. And people want you to find perfect evidence that will convince absolutely everyone about one single case, right? And then they set a standard of evidence that no one can ever meet. And so they say, well, you can't even prove a single case. Therefore, there's no way that you can claim that all the elections are fake. Yes, I can. Because we see the results, we see the narratives, all of that lines up in a totally plausible manner if we understand that elections are fake. And it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever otherwise. Okay? So that right there is better proof than any piece of official evidence or admission that we could ever possibly get. Elections are fake. It's time to understand that elections are fake and they are under control, which means that the results can be dictated from either one side or the other. Now, I would suggest that the results are being controlled from our side. Okay? And you can take that as you will. You're saying our side cheats in elections? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that our side makes the news or Edison Research or whatever report whatever numbers it wants to produce the results it wants. And I'm saying that the other side used to do that, and that's obvious. Our side does it now. But here's the thing. These aren't real elections. They're not real elections. So it doesn't really matter if they change the Edison numbers. We might think we're all casting real lawful American votes, but we're not. Okay? Because the elections are not held lawfully. So there are no real lawful American votes. And we need to get to that point. Otherwise, things like this will continue blindsiding us, and we will be unable to understand, well, hey, if the House majority is so important, why is Donald Trump getting rid of it on his own proactively? That's a damn good question. Why is he doing that? How could he be doing such a thing? Speaker Mike Johnson on Wednesday acknowledged the House GOP's even tighter margins in 2025 will leave them nothing to spare as they work to pass President-elect Donald Trump's ambitious agenda. Actually, they don't need to pass anything. Trump's entire agenda could be stripping away all of the unconstitutional and illegitimate elements of our federal government, and we wouldn't need the House to pass a single damn bit of legislation, not a spending bill, not any of it. The military is going to exist and be funded based on the Constitution. We don't need their nonsense legislation year after year after year. And then I think that Trump would be just fine in putting it before the nation. Hey, look, the Congress is unwilling to fund the military based on their opposition to me. Imagine that. Imagine that. So Johnson said of his possibilities of maneuvering a GOP agenda through with those slim margins, we know how to work in a small majority here. That's our custom. And it's good for him. What's not good for anyone is the fact that we still have fake elections. And that is clear now. And the other thing that we should pay attention to is that we did not have a landslide. Okay? There's no landslide. There's no landslide in the Electoral College. There's no landslide in the popular vote. There's no landslide in the House. In fact, we barely have a House majority. And there's no landslide in the Senate, where we gained 3 seats over the illegitimate results of the 2022 midterms. And this was one of those easy elections for Republicans. And we still watched as Senate seats were stolen in Arizona, in Nevada. Where else did they steal them? In other states as well. In Wisconsin. I think there was one more. So we didn't have real elections. We didn't have a landslide. Why were all those Con Inc. media figures and based in red-pilled normies in the alt media suggesting otherwise? Why were they patting themselves on the back and saying that we had this massive election win? We won in a landslide. Now, did that help cement the public understanding of the size of Donald Trump's mandate? Maybe it did. And if that's your answer, then I would say, okay, you got a point. That is an acceptable argument. I guess we're going to have to see in the future. But you got to at least consider that that's not the answer, that it might actually just be something else. And they could have just been lying and propagating the regime and the Uniparty narratives about this election. I said what was going to happen in very thorough terms for the last year, and now it's happening, and we can see it happening. So, I said they're going to give Donald Trump, they're going to report a small Donald Trump win because it'll make everybody go back to sleep thinking that our elections are legitimate. And then they will work to delegitimize, disqualify, and then further subvert him once he is in office. And that is exactly what we can see happening. There is no landslide. There's no landslide. Okay. Donald Trump has a massive, overwhelming public mandate. That part remains true, but there is no landslide, and we should not be pretending otherwise. Trump posted this morning, speaking of election fraud, about Michael Whatley. And this is the sort of thing, by the way, that people should respond to. And I will respond to this right after I read this. Michael Whatley from the great state of North Carolina has been with me since the beginning. And he has done an outstanding and a historic job in running the Republican National Committee with the fantastic Laura Trump. He is a smart, tough lawyer who put together a completely unprecedented election integrity operation that protected the vote across all America and a get out the vote campaign that delivered the votes we needed in every battleground state. Michael and Laura transformed the RNC into a lean, focused, and powerful machine that will empower the America First agenda for many years to come. I've asked Michael to return as chairman of the RNC to continue to build our party and be a trusted partner as we make America great again and ensure free and fair elections. Republicans everywhere should support him as he continues his mission at the RNC. Thank you for your hard work, Michael. I'm going to respond to Donald Trump with no disrespect intended. I'm sorry. Elections are fake. Elections are fake. Election integrity, to the extent it has been promoted, has not done the job. If there's something we don't know, by all means, tell us. Okay? So, and I'm going to say with great respect, of course. I don't see any problem with the people responding in that way. Donald Trump needs to hear from the people. If he is the tribune of the people and he is a servant of the people, then he needs to hear from the people. And that means that we should be able to tell him, hey, we don't see that election integrity. No one's been held accountable for stolen elections, at least not as far as we can tell. Elections are clearly still fake, so that didn't work. Now, if the RNC drummed up votes among state legislators so that we could win a contingent election, which is probably constitutionally the only possible type of legitimate election we could have in 2024. Or I suppose it's possible that there is some other means of getting the electors in the states to cast their electoral college votes in favor of Trump, which I guess remains to be seen. If the RNC and Michael Whatley did a good job of that, and there was integrity in that form, constitutionally speaking, rather than in the bullshit elections that we pretend to hold, well, maybe Donald Trump is telling the 100% spot on truth in those statements. Maybe he's running an op. Maybe this statement is meant to attract a certain kind of response. Maybe it's just meant to make people think that Michael Whatley has done a great job when he hasn't. I don't know, because I can't know what's in Trump's brain and in his heart. But it's clear that our elections have no integrity. The elections are, in fact, fake. We can see that any notion of a landslide is obvious bullshit, except in regard to the public mandate, which is exactly what I said the day after the election. I mean, man, I'm not saying I'm the only person out there who's thought these things, although I might be, because I haven't heard anybody else say them until they have listened to me say them. But I shouldn't be able to be that right in a situation where we have real election. Okay? That should be impossible. I should not be able to predict the outcomes and the media narratives that would spin off those outcomes. Okay? So I think that this lens that this podcast and I use and many of you use to analyze current events, so far as we're told what actual events are. I think that's the right one. Okay. I think that this is proof of that mindset. So how are we doing on time here? 2:07 Eastern. And I will check the chat and then let us continue. Okay. So we are hearing today about Pete Hegseth. We're being told that Pete Hegseth, while he may not be a rapist, he may not even be an abuser of women, as we were told his mom claimed and has now retracted. He's still a damn dirty drunk. That is what we are being told about Pete Hegseth. All right. Let's get to some of this. I'm going to open this page on CNN. He is a damn dirty drunk. Uncertainty looms over Trump's defense secretary pick, Pete Hegseth. No, it doesn't. Pete Hegseth still says that he's going to keep on fighting. Donald Trump has told him to keep fighting. Hegseth said he spoke to the president-elect earlier today, who encouraged him to keep fighting as he faces an uphill battle for confirmation. So Hegseth is, we're told, meeting with senators about his nomination. He is not giving up. Trump is not giving up on him. So there is not uncertainty looming. This is a story made up by the political establishment and its media. And there's nothing more to it. As for the drinking, the claims were from 10 unnamed Fox News sources, people who supposedly were colleagues of Pete Hegseth and reported on him and his behavior, made these claims about him showing up drunk to work, alcohol on his breath. None of them named whatsoever. Then we have actual colleagues of Pete Hegseth prepared to go on the record. Sarah Carter says on X, formerly Twitter, I've known Pete Hegseth since we were both at the Blaze way back when, and as a contributor for Fox since 2017. I have never once seen this type of reported lies or behavior. He has always been a gentleman and a great guy. And these stories were coming from Yashar Ali, who was a good friend of Chrissy Teigen, a very, very dumb communist, but a guy who is able to get provocative claims and stories out broadly on the internet. He's a big Twitter account, used to work for the New Yorker, used to work for Huffington Post. There is also this from some other colleagues of, and I say that about Ali, by the way, as a result of various interactions with him online, back and forths and whatnot. So, that's my opinion. If other people love him, by all means, love him. I doubt any of those people are listening to my show. Maybe he is a nice guy in person. I don't know. I can't imagine that he is a moral person. So what do I care about whether or not he's nice in person? Will Kane said, your story is horseshit, NBC News. Put my name on it, on the record. I'll be your only on the record source. Signed, the guy who sat next to him for 8 hours a week for, I think he said 5 years. Rachel Campos Duffy, another Fox News employee, or a character, I should say, responded, the losers at NBC News never reached out to me either. Will Kane is right. Your story is horseshit. You now have 2 people who sat next to him 8+ hours a week on the record. Will you retract or correct your story? Will Kane then said in a later post, GOP senators cannot fold to these cheap anonymous attacks on Pete Hegseth. If they do, they'll just invite more and more Kavanaugh-style attacks for every potential disruptor, everyone who represents real change, and they'll lose one hell of a SecDef in Pete Hegseth. And maybe all of that is true. I certainly don't have personal experience or knowledge of any of these situations, but we can see a concerted effort on the part of the media and of the political establishment on the Republican side to get Pete Hegseth out of there. And Starborn in the chat says, if one election is fake, then all of them are. Yeah, that's probably true. They've got to all be real and legitimate. Otherwise, the people should not be handing over their power to any of these political figures. It's not a call for revolution. It is a call for basic human dignity. Okay. The understanding is that the power of the people is handed over to representatives based on real elections and the choice of the people. And it is the people's choice at every moment past that to rescind the power they have handed over. Okay. That is our actual history. That is what the founding documents say. That's what the Declaration of Independence, most importantly, says. We should not be giving over our power to these communists just because they say they won the election. It's absolutely bonkers. But let's get back to the subject. This is the Wall Street Journal this morning. Trump mulls replacing Pete Hegseth with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. And Trump and DeSantis were together yesterday at a memorial service in Florida. And I shared this video. Might as well just point this out. I shared this video on Telegram. I didn't actually listen to this video at any point, so I don't know what the sound will be like. But notice where Trump is seated, where Eric Trump next to him is seated, and then where Rig D. Meatball is seated down the way.
Is that the good Lord himself must have just bought a big Harley Davidson and needs help. Each of you should know that the work of these instructors has saved the life of.
Okay, so actually, let's put this back, but I'll pause it. Trump is seated well behind this bulletproof glass, and then Ron is not from a great many angles. So Trump is seated in one position, Eric Trump in another. Ron DeSantis is on the other side of Eric Trump. And hey, maybe Trump is seated there because the bulletproof glass is there and it's the most protected spot. And if that's the case, all good. But why isn't Ron seated next to him? Just saying. Did they just not talk the whole time? I don't know. One day later, after this little display makes Trump and Ron seem close and aligned, then we get this article, the Wall Street Journal, trying to drum up some support for Ron DeSantis. And again, we can give Ron the benefit of the doubt and say that he is part of a pro-Trump red team op meant to draw out all of these rhinos and establishment Republican figures and regime figures, Uniparty figures that just have to go. Okay. So now that I have said the caveat that is necessary before people lose their minds because they love Ron DeSantis as an actor on Fox News for a few years, maybe Ron DeSantis is just part of the Uniparty. And this is just the sort of thing that the Uniparty does. Their media pushes someone who they want. They try to get rid of Hegseth for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then they start suggesting their own replacements, hoping that the general public will throw up its hands and say, all the Trump supporters will say, you know what, this Hegseth thing, it's just too much of a headache. We're conservatives. He drinks and he's not nice to women. We got to get rid of him. And we should replace him with a safe choice like Ron DeSantis, who absolutely everybody loves. Ron made Florida the place where woke goes to die. Ron is America's governor. Everybody loves Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis has done virtually nothing other than implement an establishment Republican agenda in Florida. We're told he made Florida deep, deep red. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. There's no proof of that whatsoever. Okay. Ron DeSantis has just done what establishment governors do. He shut down the state of Florida, parts of the state of Florida. Ron was not some COVID warrior. Ron did a passable job during COVID relative to what the rest of the country did. And Trump didn't shut down Florida. Ron did. So, President-elect Donald Trump is considering Florida Governor Ron DeSantis as a possible replacement for Pete Hegseth. His pick to run the Pentagon, according to people familiar with the discussions. So nothing. Amid Republican senators' concerns over mounting allegations about the former Fox News host's personal life, picking DeSantis a primary rival for the presidency would amount to a stunning turn for Trump. He would also find in the governor a well-known conservative with a service record who shares Trump's and Hegseth's view on culling what they see as woke policies in the military. Now, woke policies are not the only problem in the military. I would suggest they're not even the biggest problem. They may not even be a problem at all. It might be a problem that has already been handled, that we have had displayed to us a great deal. And I'm not saying that it's handled absolutely everywhere. I'm saying that if the fix has already occurred and the effect comes later, then when Ron DeSantis claims credit for it, or whoever the SecDef is, will not have actually been the person who took care of the problem. Okay? There are other reasons why Trump is picking a Secretary of Defense right now, and it's not because he needs someone to handle the wokeness. In the same way that he doesn't need Elon and Vivek to figure out what parts of the government aren't constitutional. Trump's allies increasingly think Hegseth may not survive further scrutiny, according to people close to the president-elect's team, which considers the next 48 hours to be crucial to his fate. Well, Hegseth said he's going to keep fighting. Trump told him to keep fighting. What's the mystery? And I'm not saying Hegseth won't drop out. I don't know. I don't care. Okay? None of this is true. That's the point. They want us to believe certain things because they are trying to accomplish their goals. And so it's important to see what their goals are. Their goals seem to be get rid of Hegseth, replace him with Ron, sell Ron to the people as a good solution. Wait, we're going to deal with all this for Hegseth and we could get Ron DeSantis? That's the reaction they're looking for. Trump allies, DeSantis, who served as a Navy lawyer in Iraq and the Guantanamo Bay detention facility, was on an earlier list of potential defense secretary candidates that transition officials presented to the president. Oh, so Ron was a suggestion that Trump already ignored? Discussions are in their early stages, one of the people said, adding that Trump has floated DeSantis' name in casual conversations with guests at Mar-a-Lago, his private Florida club. Or they floated the name to Trump. Or Trump simply said, yeah, people were asking me to pick DeSantis. Is that Trump floating the name of DeSantis in casual conversation? Yeah, I'd think that that would qualify. Then they say that it might be Eldridge Colby, a former Pentagon official and ally of J.D. Vance, and they say it might be Joni Ernst. So a senator that supported Ron in the fake primary, a man that supports J.D. Vance, and hey, who knows about J.D. Vance? Everybody loves J.D. They want to grovel before J.D. Vance. I don't think there's anything good to be said about J.D. Vance, other than that he seems to be a competent person when it comes to publicly speaking the things people on podcasts say, okay? Handling a debate with Tim Walz and two retards from the media is not some amazing accomplishment that suggests this is a hardcore MAGA warrior who is going to fight for the American people till his last breath, okay? Let's continue. So this is not the only thing going on with Trump's picks. Let's move on to some other ones. His pick of Chad Chronister, the Florida sheriff, as DEA, as the head of the Drug Enforcement Administration. Well, that man has withdrawn his name. There were already problems with that guy. We talked about those, I believe, on Monday. This is CNN Today. Trump's pick for DEA administrator withdraws from consideration. This actually happened yesterday, but it was updated today. Over the past several days, this is Chronister in his post on X, formerly Twitter. Over the past several days, as the gravity of this very important responsibility set in, I've concluded that I must respectfully withdraw from consideration. There's more work to be done for the citizens of Hillsborough County and a lot of initiatives I am committed to fulfilling. I sincerely appreciate the nomination, outpouring of support by the American people, and I look forward to continuing my service as sheriff of Hillsborough County. The Trump transition team declined to comment on Tuesday, but on Wednesday, Trump said in a social media post that he pulled his support for the pick. He didn't pull out, I pulled him out because I did not like what he said to my pastors and other supporters, the president-elect said on Truth Social. And we're going to get to that post in just a moment. Trump appears to be referring to a time early in the COVID-19 pandemic when Chronister arrested a Tampa area pastor for defying a local lockdown ordinance and was critical of people continuing to congregate. Trump announced Chronister as his pick on Saturday, writing in a social media post, as DEA administrator, Chad will work with our great Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to secure the border, stop the flow of fentanyl and other illegal drugs across the southern border, and save lives. Now, it's interesting that he pointed out Pam Bondi there. A lot of people are suspect about Pam Bondi. There also should not be a DEA. And the fentanyl thing, I think, is really hard to separate not only from other illegal drugs and the immigration problem, but also from big pharma, because fentanyl is the replacement for the opium and the opiates that big pharma was using previous to that to get Americans addicted to drugs. And that dried up, it seems, with the Taliban shutting off the opium supply from Afghanistan. Just saying. Chronister has served as sheriff for Hillsborough County, which includes the city of Tampa, since 2017, when he was appointed to the post by then Governor Rick Scott, according to his office's website. He has served with the sheriff's office for 32 years and has been reelected twice since 2017, blah, blah, blah. He's also, you have to remember, Chronister is the husband of Nicole DeBartolo, who's the daughter of Ed DeBartolo Jr., who was the owner of the 49ers and received a pardon from Donald Trump. All of that is very interesting. The connection to Rick Scott is interesting because Rick Scott was supposed to be the based and red-pilled Trump ally that would be our best possible hope for Senate Majority Leader. Now, was the Republican establishment pushing him? The conning part of it, the conning info op part of it was the based and red-pilled influencer op was. So, got to think about that. That's a direct association between this obviously bad guy and Rick Scott. It's another one with a Trump pardon. It's another one with Pam Bondi. Is Trump using this to actually kind of dirty up Pam Bondi and Rick Scott? Can't rule it out. So Trump said, actually, let's do this one first. One more thing on Chronister. This is Chronister's statement from back in 2020, announcing the arrest of Dr. Ronald Howard Brown, pastor of the River at Tampa Bay Church, who intentionally and repeatedly disregarded state and local public health orders, which put his congregation and our community in danger. Chronister noted in a tweet at the time, this is March 2020. We are hoping that this serves as a deterrent, Chronister said during a 2020 news conference. Shame on this pastor, their legal staff, and the leaders of this church for forcing us to do our job. That's not what we wanted to do during a declared state of emergency. So it's actually the pastor's fault for making this sheriff choose to disregard his constitutional duty and instead carry out the orders of Ron DeSantis. Whose fault is it that Chad Chronister did this and does this blow back in Ron's face? I can't see how it doesn't, okay? He's talking about the declared state of emergency. Now he's saying we were just following orders, but whose orders were those? Well, they were rigged to meatballs. They were old bootsies. What else did we call Ron? I miss those days. Rigged D meatball. Rick. Yeah, also Rick. Rick D meatball. I found a video recently. Let me see if I can find it. Of Ron DeSantis pronouncing his name as DeSantis. Ah, yes. It was when I was doing hindsight research. Here's Ron from 2020. He's going to be talking about therapies and vaccines, by the way. And maybe this is a good one to dredge up because I had to hear unrelentingly on X, formerly Twitter, from all of the retards supporting Ron DeSantis that he was like somehow anti-vax or something. Ron was the based and red-pilled savior that Trump could never be when it comes to COVID. So stupid.
Hello, this is Governor Ron DeSantis. In recent days, we've seen more breakthroughs in the fight against COVID-19. Regeneron, a new monoclonal antibody therapy meant for those most vulnerable to COVID, has received its emergency use authorization and is now on its way to hospitals throughout the state. This effectively doubles the supply of Bamlan, Eli Lilly's monoclonal antibody treatment that arrived at hospitals just over a week ago. Like Bamlan, Regeneron will be administered by IV and should be taken shortly after receiving a positive test. Both treatments are meant to keep people out of the hospital. In addition to Bamlan and Regeneron, Eli Lilly just received EUA to use the drug baricitinib to treat hospitalized COVID-19 patients. A clinical study in Europe found that it may enhance survival in patients with severe COVID. And more good news about the vaccine has been coming out. December 10th is the date that the FDA will meet regarding the Pfizer vaccine, and we anticipate the FDA to review Moderna's vaccine shortly thereafter. Importantly, I spoke with the top pharmacists at both CVS and Walgreens involved in Operation Warp Speed yesterday. They assured me that as soon as they have the vaccine in hand, they are ready to deploy to Florida's over 4,000 long-term care facilities to begin vaccinating the residents. Fortunately, more than 3,000 long-term care facilities have already signed up. And our goal will be to provide vaccines to every resident of long-term care facilities throughout the state. And of course, the initial doses of the vaccine is estimated to be 40 million by the end of December nationwide. It's important to know that each vaccine requires the individual to take 2 doses. So 40 million doses will represent the vaccination of approximately 20 million Americans. Now, that obviously is not going to be enough to vaccinate everyone right at the beginning. So there will be priorities set. And in Florida, we are going to set priorities focusing on specifically those most vulnerable elderly residents in long-term care facilities, as well as our frontline healthcare workers who are interacting with vulnerable patients day in and day out. As more vaccine becomes available, we're going to want to get that into the broader senior community first, and then into the broader community at large. But as we anxiously await the vaccine, I think it's important to double down on protecting our most vulnerable, particularly our vulnerable seniors in long-term care facilities. If we can redouble our efforts to protect the most vulnerable until the vaccine is deployed, we'll help safeguard the lives of thousands of Floridians. Accordingly, I've set aside an additional 500,000 rapid tests so that over these next few weeks, all long-term care facilities will be able to test all staff, all visitors, and all contractors. We have all longed for the day when our long-term care residents can return to normal, and that day is finally within our grasp. Thank you all. Happy Thanksgiving, and God bless.
So I got to say, man, Ron DeSantis does not sound like he was an anti-vax warrior. Sorry about that. He does not sound like a COVID truther. He does not sound like a guy that did not restrict the behavior of people in Florida. He just sounds like every other governor during the COVID period. Ron DeSantis, in my estimation, is a regime info op, and he has been the whole time. And Donald Trump preempted that op and ran it against them. He basically took control of Ron and turned Ron around against them, because Ron, remember, was advertised as just like Trump without all the problems of Trump. That was a product they created. And then they made Ron look like the good guy during and after COVID so that he could run for president in 2024 after having an overwhelming win in 2022. He had already started his presidential campaign before then, and Donald Trump called it out before the midterms that year. All you have to imagine is that Andrew Gillum would have won the 2018 Florida governorship, as he was slated to do, until Donald Trump made sure that didn't happen in fake elections. Ron would have still been in Congress. Ron would have been hammering on COVID while in Congress, and then would have had a runaway win in the 2022 midterm, maybe over Andrew Gillum. Well, let me see when the Andrew Gillum scandal was. When did the Andrew Gillum scandal break? June 22nd, 2022. How about that? The most perfect possible time in that midterm governor's race. Gillum would have been governor. Gillum would have shut Florida down in the same ways Ron did during COVID. And then Ron would have been the anti-COVID guy against Gillum in 2022, getting to win in overwhelming fashion on his anti-COVID stuff, his anti-woke stuff, and the fact that Gillum had that massive scandal. And everything else would have just played out exactly the same, including Ron's primary run. So you want to tell me that Ron is a good guy? I really, really don't believe that's true. Ron did not do anything to fix Florida's elections. What part of Ron is good? I just don't get it. I really don't get it. The scandal broke in June of 2022, as it was always slated to break. Ron would have been the biggest Republican star in the country if Trump was no longer there. If they had gotten rid of Trump, if the people had turned away from Trump, Ron would have been the biggest Republican star there was. And I would posit to you that Donald Trump ruined that entire narrative back in 2018 by giving Ron that win and making Ron do that ridiculous commercial where he taught his kids how great Trump was. I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying. People are like, you just hate Ron DeSantis. Why would I hate Ron DeSantis? I hate Ron DeSantis because I think he sucks for all of these reasons. Now, I might be wrong about this, and you might be right that Ron is just so great, but where is his greatness in that case? Where's his greatness? He fights woke. Trump broke woke. Trump supporters broke the wokeness thing. Ron didn't do anything. Woke's not even done in Florida. Gosh, man. People just love the television characters and they can't let go of the television characters. And we see the same thing. The fake elections, these nominations, it's just the television characters doing their television character thing. Normie Republican establishment clowns who want to be taken seriously as not only conservatives, but Trump aligned when Trump does good things. And the rest of the time, they criticize Donald Trump and try to tear down both Trump and MAGA in real ways on behalf of the Uniparty, on behalf of the regime, so that they can then go and call themselves objective and pretend that they're the only ones actually trying to take on the left. They are the left. Neoconservatism is a leftist ideology, and they are neoconservatives, even if they weren't self-identified neoconservatives. Whatever conservatism it is they practice supports the Republican establishment, which is neoconservative. So they are neocons, they are leftists, they are global communists, and they don't even deny the globalism. They hate MAGA, they hate populism, they hate Trump supporters, and they don't care about the people. So, I don't know what, man, people get upset when I do this, but God damn, tell me why I'm wrong. Prove to me that I'm wrong. Okay? Trump had one more post here on Chad Chronister. I believe it's this one. The Wall Street Journal is becoming more and more obnoxious and unreadable. So that's the same paper that posted about Ron today. Trump's DEA pick. Today's main headline is Trump's DEA pick pulls out in latest setback. With all that's happening in the world, this is their number one story of the day. Besides, he didn't pull out. I pulled him out because I did not like what he said to my pastors and other supporters. But more importantly, what's my latest setback? I just won the presidency of the United States. They haven't written a good story about me in years. Somebody over there ought to look at what they're doing. The only one worse than them is stupid, China-centric Forbes magazine. And while we're at it, I'm wondering why he pointed out Forbes. And if anyone has any clues today, if you see a big Forbes headline, absolutely let me know. Also, anything Steve Forbes, Trump is hinting at something there, no doubt. What was I just going to look for? Oh, man, I just had a search and I just talked myself out of it. I literally talked myself through remembering what my search was going to be. Oh, man, it was something with the Wall Street Journal. Oh, no, I think maybe it was just to see who owns Forbes. Forbes magazine and its associated website are currently owned by Integrated Whale Media Investments, a Hong Kong-based investment group, which acquired a majority stake in Forbes in 2014. At that time, Forbes' family retained a minority interest, with Steve Forbes continuing his role as chairman and editor-in-chief. Recently, in May 2023, Austin Russell, the CEO of Luminar Technologies, and recognized as one of the youngest self-made billionaires, was set to acquire an 82% stake in Forbes Global Media Holdings for approximately $800 million. As of November 2023, this acquisition has been canceled due to complications in securing the necessary funding from investors. So the Chinese firm still holds it. I would also suspect that this right here is a bad guy. Usually when we hear about youngest self-made billionaires, the self-made part is a total and complete lie. And I would suggest as Exhibit 1, Kim Kardashian or any of those influencers who put their names on a product. And maybe that's some knock to Donald Trump that they're trying to play through the media. I don't know. But self-made billionaire, hardly. These people are not inventing their products. They're not doing anything with their products. I used to work in celebrity media, social media management. These are just product deals. We used to do them all the time. Okay, let's go a couple more Trump nominations, and then we'll do one last story, and then we will get out of there. And I can't believe, I think I'm going to hit all of it. Wow. I'm impressed with myself. Maybe it's just because I am speaking so unbelievably quickly all the time that it's probably annoying to listeners. I hope it's not. You guys can let me know in the chat if I talk too fast. Some of you listen to it at 1.5 though, so whatever. But yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that before. I'm just trying to get a lot in here, man. What's the point of listening through pauses? Okay, so Trump on Truth Social. I am delighted to nominate Jared Isaacman, an accomplished business leader, philanthropist, pilot, and astronaut, as administrator of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. Jared will drive NASA's mission of discovery and inspiration, paving the way for groundbreaking achievements in space science, technology, and exploration. Over the past 25 years, as the founder and CEO of Shift4, Jared has demonstrated exceptional leadership, building a trailblazing global finance technology company. He also co-founded and served as CEO of Draken International, a defense aerospace company, for over a decade, supporting the U.S. Department of Defense and our allies. Jared's passion for space, astronaut experience, and dedication to pushing the boundaries of exploration, unlocking the mysteries of the universe, and advancing the new space economy make him ideally suited to lead NASA into a bold new era. Congratulations to Jared, his wife Monica, and their children Mila and Liv. Okay, so Jared Isaacman sounds like a great guy. The question, of course, is, who is Jared Isaacman? Let's go to, I used sleepwalk as a search term rather than spacewalk. Let's go to the spacewalk. God King Elon led us successfully to space. If you remember, I discussed this on an episode of the podcast not too terribly long ago. Let us find again Jared Isaacman. Where are my links, man? Where are my links? Spacewalk. Ask Jared. That's the only thing I can ever think of when I hear about the spacewalk. Gosh, man, all the headlines are, here we are. Polaris Dawn. Let's look at this dumbass space bullshit. Billionaire completes first private spacewalk, September 12th, 2024. Let's look at this ridiculous video.
These are the first views. I have a feeling the crowd.
Oh my God, he's going to emerge.
Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, Earth sure looks like a perfect world.
Utter retardation. All of this, these people should all be ashamed. Where I want the video of him just like bobbing his head above the there it is. There we go. That's a perfect picture. Look at that shit. Oh, it's a spacewalk. Earth sure looks like a perfect world. And then he's nominated after going through this humiliation ritual. He's nominated to lead NASA. The most embarrassing of all of the science organizations. Are we ever going to see this man serve as the head of NASA in the Trump administration? I would suggest that if we do, he will be participating in Elon's operation, which is slowly disclosing to the public that all that space bullshit is bullshit. So, man, oh man, I mean, good on you, Trump. And listen, maybe I'll be the the stupid one here, right? I guess it's possible. Maybe all space is real and the Earth is just as sort of roundish as they just showed it. There's never been a picture of Earth ever till now, but that was perfect, crystal clear video of the pale blue dot as seen by a spacewalker who just participated in a humiliation ritual, it looks like. I mean, I don't know what you can say about that. I really, really don't. I don't know. Maybe I'm just retarded, I guess. I don't know. Something tells me this pick is not going to make it. Something tells me NASA is not going to make it. So there we have it. Another ridiculous pick to lead a organization that should not exist. Axios, Trump picks crypto advocate Paul Atkins to head the SEC. Atkins is a favorite of the crypto community. His appointment signals an even deeper embrace by the coming administration. He believes in the promise of robust, actually, hold on. Hopefully if they'll let's just read Trump's whole statement. That's a better way to go about it than reading what Axios thinks is important in Trump's statement. I am delighted to announce the nomination of Paul Atkins to be the next chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Paul is a proven leader for common sense regulations. He believes in the promise of robust, innovative capital markets that are responsive to the needs of investors, that provide capital to make our economy the best in the world. He also recognizes that digital assets and other innovations are crucial to making America greater than ever before. So that's going to be an interesting tie-in with the Trump DeFi, Decentralized Finance Project. Paul is the CEO and founder of Potomac, I don't know, Global Partners, a risk management consultancy. As co-chairman of the Digital Chambers Token Alliance since 2017, he has worked on and studied the digital assets industry. A former SEC commissioner from 2002 to 2008, Paul strongly advocated for transparency and protecting investors. He earned a JD from Vanderbilt University School of Law and his AB from Wofford College, summa cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa. I don't even know what an AB is. Let's ask the machine. What is an AB degree and where is Wofford College? I bet this is some British bullshit. Oh, it's the same as a BA and a Bachelor of Arts. So whatever. So he went to Wofford, and that is in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Well, South Carolina is a wonderful state, so I guess that's not any British bullshit. It's just some normal bullshit. Phi Beta Kappa, very nicely done. Congratulations to Paul, his wonderful wife, Sarah, and sons, Stuart, Peter, and Henry. Indeed, congratulations. I hope that is a good guy. I, as you can probably detect, know virtually nothing about the man. So let me see if G Money has shot his mouth off today about him. No, he's only announced the appointment. And I say that in the most loving way possible to my good friend, Garrett. Speaking of another friend named Garrett, Garrett Ziegler in this case, his boss, Peter Navarro, has been appointed by Trump once again. Here is that Navarro appointment. Trump says, I am pleased to announce that Peter Navarro, a man who was treated horribly by the deep state, or whatever else you would like to call it. Very interesting right there. Something to keep in mind in the future. Will serve as my senior counselor for trade and manufacturing. During my first term, few were more effective or tenacious than Peter in enforcing my two sacred rules: buy American, hire American. He helped me renegotiate unfair trade deals like NAFTA and the Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement, KORUS. Another Korean Delta today, another Korea hit on the same day we have this whole op about martial law, and moved every one of my tariff and trade actions fast. And Peter Navarro would say on Trump time, and that's probably what Trump is referencing right there. What does that mean, Trump time? And Peter Navarro's book, by the way, is called In Trump Time. The senior counselor position leverages Peter's broad range of White House experience while harnessing his extensive policy, analytic, and media skills. His mission will be to help successfully advance and communicate Trump manufacturing, tariff, and trade agendas. Peter is not just a superb Harvard-trained economist. He is a noted author of more than a dozen best-selling books on strategic business management and unfair trade. He did a superb job for the American people in my first term. Peter will do an even better job as senior counselor to protect American workers and truly make American manufacturing great again. And we have every reason at this point to believe that Donald Trump is telling the absolute truth right there about Peter Navarro. And Peter Navarro would be serving simply as a presidential advisor, I think, in technical terms. So we do not need to worry about the office to which he is being appointed being obviated by the fact that the agency is unconstitutional and in the future will not exist. Okay, Starborn says in the chat, John, meaning John Harold, asked if G Money approves of the selection of Atkins as SEC chairman, and G Money said he likes it. Now, again, I don't know if there's going to be a Securities and Exchange Commission. I'm not sure there should be one of those. Decentralized finance might obviate the need for a Securities and Exchange Commission. And to the extent that Atkins is very familiar with and a proponent of decentralized finance, then it's worth considering that he might take down the need for the SEC all on his own. Bitcoin is a revolutionary technology, and its potential is not something that should be stifled by over-regulation. A quote from Atkins posted to X, formerly Twitter, by my good friend G Money, who goes by G Money Pepe on X, formerly Twitter. He also says, looks like digital 1776 to me. I would agree with my friend, as I often do, but not always. He thinks Ron DeSantis is great, by the way. He doesn't pay attention to anything but Bitcoin. You got to be clear. When G Money is going off about political shit, he pays some attention to it, but he's mostly concerned with what he's doing, and he loves to just trigger people. So taking those political takes overly seriously and then getting mad is totally unnecessary. And I think he would be like, yeah, thank you for saying that. Although maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm making him sound unserious and he would be unhappy about that. I don't think he would be. Based Mike Lee, and we'll close on this, on Twitter, X, formerly Twitter, says the U.S. government is actively working to undermine the American people. We've empowered Washington to the point that it's become dangerous and destructive. It's too big, too expensive, and too powerful. We must return to constitutional government. Well, great point. Mike Lee, what are you doing to help that along? I've seen you be very based and red-pilled on Twitter. I've seen absolutely nothing else, though I am open to being wrong in the future. He then posts Project Veritas, which is the post-James O'Keefe Project Veritas. Project Veritas, I believe and have believed for a very long time, is not a hidden camera, we're going to get them operation. It is a whistleblower operation disguised as a candid camera operation. Okay. And, this is not a slight to them. We are trying to deliver evidence to the public in ways that have never been considered before so that they can break through the mainstream media's hold on the narrative. And this is effective in doing that. So for me to hate it would be crazy unless they were actually lying. And I don't believe that they are, because this aligns with something that we've been talking about for months, which is that these people want to spend all of your money as fast as they can before Donald Trump gets back in and stops them. Now we can go down a few more permutations of that, but we've done it before. So let's go ahead and check out this video from Project Veritas. This is not the full version, okay? This is 5 minutes of a much longer video. Well, let's just go ahead and watch it.
To go work for one of these places, I think would be really cool.
What are the places that you've given them to?
It's only been a few weeks, so it's a little early. But like green banks, so they're like nonprofit institutions that are like making it more financially feasible to build renewables, to do like climate projects. I do implementation now, so I do like how do you spend $100 billion? How do you make sure that like there's a proper, well, until recently, how do you make sure the proper like processes and parts in place to like prevent fraud and prevent abuse and like ensure that like we are funding like good paying jobs and that sort of stuff. Now it's just how to get the money out as fast as possible before they come in and like stop.
Really?
Yeah.
You can do that?
To an extent, just like within reason.
Yeah, really? Yeah. Why not? Because if it's not gonna,
basically that's what it all is now. I mean, now it all is like, it truly feels like we're on the Titanic and we're throwing like gold bars off the hatch.
Does it really? It gotta feel weird.
It's weird. I mean, it's not good vibes. It's not good. I mean, everyone's very sad.
Where are the gold bars going to?
Nonprofits, states, tribes, cities.
Anything like in the news that I would know of?
Not yet.
Like any organizations, like
well, they're all local. They're small, not like local nonprofits. It's like a big thing that most of the stuff we funded, but the thing that we haven't funded yet are like the local nonprofit program. That's like was going to be like a winter Kamala Harris administration program. So now we're just like getting our as quick as possible.
Right. Yeah, the tune of $50 billion.
No, it's like $2 billion at this point. But yeah, we got most of it, like 90% of stuff. Like,
wow. And what happens if they try to stop it? They can't?
When they come in, you haven't gotten out the door, then they can stop it.
Yeah, like 2 months. If they don't get it out by a certain date, what's that date?
It's the inauguration. It's the 20th. It's renewed on the 20th of January.
Yeah, you can write down in a minute.
It's probably like a little afternoon, but yeah, it's basically new. Yeah.
Hey, I mean, throw a couple billion here or there.
It's until the Trump people come in and tell us we can no longer give up money.
Wow.
So that's at the very earliest, it's on the 20th, and it's probably a little bit after because they have to get in the building and tell people what to do.
Will they come in and stop?
Yeah, like I think they will. I think they will come in and they will issue an order that like all grants have to stop. EPA can't give any money out. So we reevaluate anything, and then they'll say we're reevaluating it, and then Congress will say we're stopping this entirely, and they'll pass a law that says all this money goes to that you want to give out. No, I think we gave them the money because it was harder. If it was a government-run program, they could take the money away if Trump won, and because it was a external policy against Trump winning. So like these are basically like nonprofit institutions that cover the entire country. They could have been a government agency, but because they aren't, they're safer from Republican systems than the USA.
You guys are like saving the world, literally.
I don't know if we are, but like, we're throwing gold bars up at the Titanic. Yeah, we're throwing gold bars up at the Titanic. That's all we can do. We're saving it. We're getting the money out.
So there we have it. Now, Starborn in the chat said this is so fake, such a setup, like no one will just answer these questions. And I tend to agree with you. And I've already presented what I think is going on with Project Veritas. The one reason I hold back from that is that I had a lot of conversations in Los Angeles, maybe even all my conversations, where one person was trying to impress the other person. Either it was them trying to impress me or me trying to impress them. And when someone's in a conversation where people are where they're trying to impress someone, they will be effusive about details because it implies inside knowledge and access to power, which are both things that get you raised perceptually within the party of false decorum dynamic. Okay. And so I can imagine this guy, some little gay dude talking to some dude from Project Veritas that he doesn't know is an undercover journalist and wanting to impress that guy. And if this guy keeps asking him questions, you know, the Veritas journalist keeps asking him questions and he keeps finding these new opportunities to be impressive. And he thinks this person is really interested in him and he's attracted to him. Like we've seen a bunch of these that are dates. Man, I can imagine him saying all of those things. We see a lot of that stuff already reported in the news from anonymous sources. Okay. And that might be our biases getting cued into things we think are going to happen. Maybe the whole thing's a setup for us, right? Always worth holding back from all our beliefs just a little bit. Not all of them, but about bullshit politics. Yes. We've talked about this stuff a bunch of times. All these agencies want to spend all that money to prop up their external interests, external to the government interests, as fast as possible. They want to get all that money assigned wherever it has to go. And it's all worthless fiat currency. And these companies who take this money at this point are going to get absolutely destroyed. But to the extent they all think that's not true, they're going to keep taking it. And as I've said, I believe that we're just going to see the NGO levels and some of these other various, quasi-governmental levels privatized and continue to get funded, including many of the agencies that are federal agencies under the executive branch right now, CDC, et cetera. I think that we'll see an effort to privatize those, and they will just keep getting their funding from other sources. But I think they're trying to get their money that they put in back out to the places it's supposed to go, to fortify those places and make sure that they can survive for 4 years under worst case scenarios, so that in 4 years' time, they can steal another election, reinstall the communists, and then bring all those agencies back under the federal government. So something to keep your eyes open for. I don't believe, I'll check one more time, but I don't believe there are any Q&A style comments in the Substack chat. One concern that I answered, and that was that. So I will check once more for Rumble Rants. I don't think I've seen any. And with that, guys, I will be back on Monday. Thank you all for watching. I will be back on Monday at the same reasonable time on the same reasonable podcast network in some form or other. I will let you know. I don't have a network. Masks and lockdowns don't work. They did lie to you about a pandemic. And Joe Biden, of course, will never be president.
Well,
what?
You know who I am, don't you?
Well, you ain't Fiona Apple, and if you ain't Fiona Apple, I don't give a rat's ass.
Down.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
What?
In my mind, that's the end game.
If you're listening for free and would like to support the show, the best way to do that is by signing up for a paid subscription at imyourmoderator.substack.com. You can find the info stream over on Telegram at t.me/veryreasonable. The merch site is cancelcouture.com. And for all my other links, you can visit linktree.com/imyourmoderator. And I'll see you soon. Down on the range.